In a world still chasing economic justice, one voice rises to inspire change. From the streets to the boardrooms, from ideas to real action, Cornell Cruz Jr. invites you to listen, learn, and transform. Drawn from the people, the community, always present, always pushing forward. Together we build opportunity, we build trust, and we build a just economy for all. This is the Just Economy Project, where equity has a sound, and the future begins with you.
And welcome back to the Community Reinvestment Alliance of Florida Just Economy Podcast. I'm your host, Cornell Cruz Jr. We're here talking to Eboni Moss, the Master Resource, talking about nonprofits and funding, and we're going to get into money right now, I think. We all know about how funding was, especially the first quarter of 2025. And everybody was panicking about funding and how we're gonna survive, and the 200 words that you can't use in federal grants anymore, and all that good stuff. So how are you advising them about funding? It can't be just a grant. There has to be, we have to step up and do other things, right?
Yeah, so that's all, even before, everything broke loose, that's always been my position when it came to funding, because you can't, again, just put all your eggs in one basket. You just don't know what can happen. So even when we're talking about private foundations, those foundations have the liberty to say, hey, I'm not funding this anymore. I had a situation where an organization was funded for several years and they say, hey, we're going to, pivot to something else. COVID happened. Organizations that didn't focus on health-related areas then pivoted to COVID-related, autoimmune, all these kind of things that were not something that they funded before. So to say, hey, even if it's not federal, but I'm relying on grants in general to be the foundation for my organization, it's just always been a risky thing to do. And now people really are starting to see that. And so what people have to do is say, what is our diverse funding strategy? What is a pot of money that we haven't gone off to? And it is going to require more work, because you're going to have to, be a good steward in terms of donor relationships. And also, I know you talked about that even with, the summit that's coming up. He's like, don't come to my summit and ask for money, right? Like, you need to be fostering relationships. How are you building relationships? How are you connecting with people to where the point where they see what it is that you're doing and they connect with the mission and they want to give? Because there are so many competing priorities. And we're not even talking about nonprofit. We're talking about just living, adulting, groceries, gas. If you have kids, I tell people a goldfish will push me over the edge right about now. You know what I mean? So, you have all these things where people are saying my dollars are already restricted because it supports just my minimal lifestyle, whatever that may be. And then now you're asking me, even if it's for $20, that $20, I need that to get to work every day. And so you have to say, what am I doing to create relationships with some of these billionaires that are coming to town? And so if we have billionaires coming, we probably got millionaires, we probably got thousandaires coming to town. How are you fostering those relationships to then be able to get dollars that are not going to be, where it's this pot of money where, again, you have 400 organizations competing for $100,000. And what does that truly look like? And what people need to understand, too, is a majority of giving to nonprofits is through individuals. So it's individuals through, paychecks, through just annual giving, and it's also bequests. So when people pass away, they put organizations in their wills and things like that. And so, you just have to say, what is it that I can do? And another thing is just also revenue. People think nonprofits, and so I can only get money through donations, but you can get revenue as long as you're related to your mission, with it still not being taxable.
Okay. I get the revenue part.
Okay.
However,
what's the smile? Okay.
However, I guess and it's a part, because a nonprofit is definitely a business. It's just a different tax designation. The revenue part is hard for me, because I'm like, you're trying to serve a disenfranchised, or trying to serve a community that's underserved, or doesn't, or is, a lack of a better word, a low amount of income census tract, and charging a fee for that. Are you advising them on how to do that as well?
Yeah, so I don't. That's not a big part of what I do, but I think at the end of the day, what can happen is not necessarily saying I'm charging the client per se, but I'm coming to, when F1 comes to town, or these big, or like we have soccer coming to town. You have these FIFA's coming to town. Thank you. You have these opportunities and these events that come in. So part of it is a community component that they want to look good. They just do, right? And so it's, what can we do to pat ourselves on the back? No disrespect. But, and so they are bringing organizations to do the work. Okay, that's people say, I'm going to charge this amount of money per child to do this type of work. And so I think that it's perfectly fine to say, hey, there is a revenue component to our organization. And that may not be for every organization.
Sure.
But if it makes sense for you, or if you have a special skill set. So, a big thing going around was, like STEM. So if you can provide STEM courses to an organization that otherwise wouldn't have a STEM teacher, they don't have the capacity to have a full-time STEM teacher, and you can use that as revenue to then use for your organization. So these may not be your clients per se, these children, but you can use that money then for your children so that they don't pay. That's also a way to kind of look at it. So it's not a big part of what I do, but I think that it is a viable way to bring in funds for certain organizations.
So, one of the things that we really want to concentrate on in the summit this year is that social impact investing piece, and getting the organizations to understand how important it is to involve those folks who have moved to our community, get them involved in our community and seeing the things that and working with these organizations for the community needs. There's no saying you can't help everybody, but we can try.
Right, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
we can try. So as we talk about engaging with these folks, to not only write checks but volunteer as well, which I think is very important as well, and teaching them how to do that. Are you also advising them on gathering those folks who want to be donors and maybe want to support the organization long term?
Yeah, I think part of that is folks have to go outside, right? I think COVID has created a culture of, webinars and all these kind of things. And trust me, I get it. And so, for instance, yesterday with the meeting, I was like, thank you so much for having a virtual opportunity. And part of it was just that I just had a busy day. And so for me to go to Fort Lauderdale and come back was just not really feasible but I wanted to be a part of that conversation. So thank you for providing the opportunity. But folks have to be outside. They have to be able to, I tell anybody, I don't care if it's nonprofit, for-profit, whatever you do, you have to go where your people are. Whomever your target audience is that you are trying to attract, you're trying to engage, go where they are. That's why I know some people don't like it. I love conferences. Conferences, I feel like, are so amazing. If you are, a doctor, you don't have to go to conferences with other doctors per se. That would be good for your continuing education. But if you are a heart doctor, go to the Heart Association conference or go to other conferences that are complementary to what it is that you do. Because this is what I tell people, when you say folks don't have the capacity to get stuff done, they have a checklist, they have a list of stuff I need to do. But if I'm looking for a doctor or a CPA or somebody, I need to get references, I got to make phone calls, I need to have meetings. But if you come to me and you're a presenter or you sound like you know what you're talking about, and hopefully you know what you're talking about, but I might be like, oh my gosh, I've been looking for you. It's just been at the bottom of my list because I haven't gotten to it. So same thing for nonprofits. You have to go out, meet people. Where are these folks convening? Where are these folks hanging out? Where are they gathering? What are the conferences or chamber meetings or whatever the case may be, and really have an opportunity to engage with them, introduce yourself. Because the first part is just awareness. People don't know who you are. So you have to say, hey, this is who I am. This is what we do. This is who we serve. We would love to tell you more about it. We would love for you to come and volunteer. Matter of fact, we have an event next week. Do you have, space? I would love to send you the information. And so again, it's just about cultivating those relationships, and it's going to take work.
So, you bring up a very interesting point. We have a tendency as nonprofits, because I work for one, and we have a tendency as nonprofits to only hang out with nonprofits. You know what I mean? That's the only people we really hang out with. Yeah. We hang out with the nonprofits and the funders of nonprofits. That seems to be, we are keeping ourselves in the small neighborhood. Insulated, to your point, Ebony, we're keeping ourselves in the small neighborhood that we don't really need to be keeping ourselves in. We're becoming segregated, and we don't need to be. Right? So we got to get out there and start going to other places. I definitely understand the chambers. I started going to a few chamber meetings because I was guilty myself. Till I step back and go, wait a minute, everything I attend is all nonprofit related.
Right.
Every single thing I attend.
Right.
Even when I go to an events, even galas, everything is a nonprofit is involved. We got to kind of step out of that realm. I'm not saying not to stop going with hanging out with nonprofits. Those my people.
Right. Absolutely.
But we got to start hanging out with other people
Right.
as we start, especially as we look at it as the funding crunch. Right.
Absolutely. Because I think part of it is just it's comfort, right? Like it's a family reunion. You get to see all of the same people that you like and trust, and so it's good to be around them. And I think also it's good to be in that space too, because a lot of nonprofits operate in silos, right? So a lot of EDs, it's one person or two person, shops and operations. So it's great to be in space with people who understand what you're doing, and maybe they are being, resourceful. Maybe they have information that you don't have. Hey, have you heard about this opportunity? Have you heard about this particular event? So I think that's all good and well, but you have to have balance in the sense that, okay, where are the people who are maybe, again, where are you finding your clients? Maybe you need to be going somewhere to find clients, number one. Maybe you need to be going somewhere to find funders. Where are those people that have the dollars? And then also, you're so busy, putting stuff on Instagram, and not to knock Instagram, but are your donors on LinkedIn? Should you be posting on LinkedIn and spreading the word about what you're doing? Because here go the people, these folks over here either got jobs or they got businesses, or, some folks are looking for jobs and whatnot. But, again, where are the folks, where the target audience that you're looking for, and go to where those people are, so that way you have a greater impact versus always just trying to do this one-on-one type of work.
So do you think that we need to learn how to be in those spaces? Because it's easy to be in the nonprofit space because that's our jobs. We're already doing that's our organizations. We're already doing it. But those folks who are not in the nonprofit space, and we're going to those events or going to those dinners or hanging out at the chamber, going to chamber events, things of that nature, where it's more other folks that are not nonprofits than there are nonprofits in the room. Do you think that's a different relation and how we speak? Because all the nonprofits have virtually the same. I noticed this one day. I was at an event a couple of weeks ago, and I noticed we all sound the same. We all sound. We know our mission.
Right.
We know who we're serving. Yeah.
Right. I'm just saying. Okay. From experience.
Okay. No, I got you. We know our mission. We know who we serve. We know where we serve geographically. And we all sound, one thing I was around the room, we all sounded the same. Yeah. And I'm shaking hands with a couple of hundred people, and I'm like, well, man, what do you do? Right. And I'm building a new building, I'm putting a wing on, or I serve the homeless, and everybody who serves the homeless says virtually the same thing.
Right.
So do we have to change our mindset as we step out of our world into others' world?
Yeah, and I think it's just intimidating, right? It's, again, we're in these spaces because we're comfortable, right? And I don't think growth happens when you're comfortable, right? Because you're going to always just you're going to play small, and you're going to be in this space, and you're going to shrink yourself. But when you're forced to speak to somebody that you've never seen before, and maybe in a part of an industry that you've never dealt with before, there's an opportunity to say, hey, and some of it is learning. You got to learn on the job. I think networking is just an apprenticeship type of thing. You got to go in and do it. It's not something you learn virtually. And the more you do it, the better that you get at it. So it absolutely is a different way to approach it, a different conversation that you may have, because you also don't want to come off like too salesy, right? You don't want to come off as like, hey, this is what I do. Can you give me some money? Like, that's also not going to work either. And so it's just a natural conversation that you would have when you meet anybody, right? Just like when I meet somebody, the first thing I ask them is not, what do you do? Right? I feel like that's such a rude approach. Like, hey, what's your name? Or what do you do? Because to me, you're putting value on this person's position and kind of what they can do for you.
Whether you're going to continue the
Absolutely,
conversation or not.
100%, right? Versus, are you from here? Or if they're with somebody, is that your daughter? Is that your friend? Is that your whatever? What do you like about Wynwood? What do you like about this area? And just having this natural conversation that I think eventually would progress into something where then you can say, hey, I would love to connect with you. What's the best way to stay in touch, or whatever the case may be? Or making sure that if you don't have a physical card, I love virtual cards. I'm horrible about bringing physical things. But something where you can, eventually do this CTA where you have this connection that eventually happens to continue the conversation. So it absolutely is intimidating. I think sometimes people, even from the nonprofit space, may prop up folks in business and say, oh, this person's so smart, or they do all of these things. And it's like, they just have a different path, right? And I always tell people, it's not that people are smarter than you. They're just sometimes more consistent. And so they have a level of success that may look intimidating, but they just stayed the course, right? Where a lot of people just kind of veered off. And so again, it's just a matter of practice makes perfect, going in, doing these things. And if you don't go to a smaller event, you don't have to go to something with 200 people, or maybe 200 people is better because you fade into the background a little bit more, right? But don't allow that to be something where you go somewhere and you never make contact with anybody, and you never walk away with an opportunity to grow a relationship with somebody that you've never met before.
Yeah, we have to learn to get out of our own way, I think.
100%. That's most of the people's issues is themselves.
Yeah, we need to get our own way and not be afraid to engage outside of
Absolutely.
our particular world, the nonprofit world.
Absolutely.
And still be able to bring to any event that we go to, or anything that we attend, or anybody that we meet, also be able to bring in to show the impact and the importance of the community itself.
And I think that's what the volunteering comes in, right? Because
Sure.
they can come in,
Exactly.
they can see the thing, they can
That's
touch
why
the thing,
I say
they can love the thing.
the volunteering is just as important as the check.
Absolutely.
It's just as important.
Absolutely.
Same
wow,
same level.
This
as far as I'm
wasn't
concerned.
this wasn't my experience growing up. I didn't know this was a thing. I didn't know this was an issue. I didn't know this was a problem. And then you come in and you see, and you're just like, oh, wow.
Or I didn't even know someone was addressing it.
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I didn't even know.
Absolutely.
So let me put you on the spot, near the spot I'm going to put you on later.
Okay, all right.
Are there too many nonprofits?
I think so. There are a lot of nonprofits that exist. So my thing to this is, while there are a lot of nonprofits that are registered, right? So we have like 1.5 million nonprofits. A lot of them are not necessarily doing the work, right? Like, again, it goes back to what we talked about earlier, is that people get this designation and then they think the money's going to come, and when it doesn't, they're kind of like, oh my goodness, this is a lot of work. Yes, it's going to be work. And so I think you have a lot of defunct organizations that are just viable on paper. And they send in their postcard every year, so the 3 years don't lapse, so that they are still, showing up as a valid organization. But they're not doing any work. So the question is, are there too many, operating viable organizations? And I think that just depends on the community that we exist in, right? And so where one community, it could be very rural, and the need for those resources are just so extensive that the man and woman power that needs to happen to fill in that gap from what government does and what people need has to be that extensive. I do think at the same time, on the flip side, or the opposite side of the spectrum, is that there is a lot of overlap that can happen in organizations. And you have a lot of people that want to be chiefs and not, Indians, in the sense that, I want to be the one to lead this. And I think we have to say, what's your motivation? Is your motivation to be an executive director? Is your motivation to be in the limelight? Because there is, recognition that comes with running an organization if you do it the right way, right? Or is it that, yes, I know that these organizations do it, but maybe they don't serve deep down South Dade County, or maybe they don't serve a particular population. So, for instance, I have a client where they work with foster youth, but one of the issues with foster youth in terms of housing was that siblings would get separated. So are there organizations that provide housing for foster? Yeah, but they have to be separated. So this organization took it upon themselves to say the need was to keep siblings together, right? So if we're already going through this trauma and going through this stress, how can we create some normalcy? And part of that is keeping siblings together, right? So maybe there's just a different way that you're doing it. But I think you really have to make an assessment of the landscape that you work in and say, does this make sense? Is this really the best approach? Or should I take my talents to an organization that already exists and just make that organization better?
So as you look at organizations and evaluate them, do you encourage in some instances, or when it's needed, partnerships, mergers, in that light?
Yeah. So for instance, when I have people that come to me that especially haven't started an organization, my first thing is, have you volunteered with an organization that already does this work? Do you know of organizations that already do this work? Does it make sense for you to just go ahead and work with an existing organization? And sometimes I think it's a little bit of an ego thing. Again, going back to I want to be the one.
That ego
to
is
do
something
it.
else.
Yeah,
Boy.
I want to be the one to do it. Like,
so
nobody's gonna do it like me.
Those 3 letters are a deadly word.
Absolutely. And so I'm like, yes, you are one of one, right? Like, you are absolutely an individual. You're unique. But does it make the most sense for you to go through this process to create an organization? And then again, are you going to put in the time, energy, and effort that it takes to fund this organization, to run this organization, or just does it make sense for you to come and partner with somebody who really could use your help? They don't have the capacity, but your skill set would be essential to taking that organization to the next level, and your partnership would be more impactful with the focus being on the clients and not necessarily on what this brings for you.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that Amy, you have those candid conversations, because I think we got to have more of those. We have quite a few organizations throughout the state who are doing the same thing, and only thing that may separate them is a few miles of geography, and not hundreds of miles. I'm talking just a few, maybe 10 miles.
Right.
You know, because I constantly use the example of a lot of organizations have started down the South Dade simply due to the fact that some organizations who do the work don't extend down that far in the county. So thank you for answering the question. Next to the spot I'm going to put you on right now. So and I asked this of all my guests. So I gave you all the power in the world. What would you do with it? Okay, that scares me.
I know. Listen, my pinky in the brain. So for me, if we say power in the world, I would want to look at it from a global standpoint, and not just when we talk about, the U.S. I think we have to say, okay, for me, I would say, how can I stabilize economies around the world, right? How can we go in organizations, whether you believe who did it or who done it and all this kind of stuff, we won't get into that. But I would go in and say, let's stabilize economies that are just in peril, right? Like they need, whether it's, getting people out of there and taking their resources, making sure they have access to their resources. I mean, there are countries in Africa that can't even get the fish, the natives can't get the fish off of the coast, their own coast, because, here you have foreign countries coming in and putting their roots and kind of taking stake in those types of things. So absolutely stabilize countries, making sure that local people have access to their resources that, they put, time, energy, and effort into. I would just say, making sure, I would also kind of remove some gatekeepers around the world, because I think that's part of the issue.
You know how I feel about gatekeepers.
So listen, and I think that even goes to the point about, are there too many nonprofit people start stuff because they maybe did try that road and nobody was trying to move over, nobody was trying to hear them, nobody's trying to listen. So okay, well then don't worry about it. I'm gonna go do my own thing, right? So I would remove some gatekeepers, allow people to really have the opportunity to get some new ideas in, to have an opportunity to work in their best and highest use. And then just make the world a better place, and also just remove the barriers that exist when we talk about race, sex, gender, identity, like all of the things that exist that prevent people who really have a great skill set from being in positions where they could, just be so transformative. And so part of that will also be changing people's mindsets around, who is the best person for things, and also changing people's mindsets about what their own abilities are. I think a lot of times we talked about people, you're in your own way. So I would love the opportunity to change how people think about themselves and how they can show up in the world, and the impact that they could really have if they just give themselves their own permission to do it.
Great answer. Thank you, Ebony.
Absolutely.
So, Ebony, give us your contact information, website, and how we can reach you.
Yeah, so I am the Master Resource on all social media, and definitely find me on LinkedIn. My website is themasterresource.com. I'm pretty easy to find. I'm definitely not hiding in the shadows by any means. I do try to be out and about, take my own advice, and attend events and functions where I can, whether it's virtually or in person. Definitely conferences. I will be at the summit, so if you're gonna be there, definitely look for me, and I would love to meet everybody. I absolutely enjoy meeting people, learning what people do, how they do it, and why they do it. So I would love to connect with you that way. But yeah, you can find me all over the interwebs.
All over the interwebs. Yes. That's a young thing. I don't know nothing about that. The interwebs.
I'll take it.
I know what the internet is. I know what the interwebs.
Beyonce's internet. That part. Yeah.
The interwebs. Always getting schooled, man. My daughters do me the same way. Dad, you don't know what that means? No, I don't know what that means. Anyway, our guest today on the Just Economy podcast has been Eboni Moss of the Master Resource, talking about nonprofits and funding and just the general nonprofit climate, as well as talking about resources and how we need to get out there and do some other things. And one of the main things I took from her today was getting out of our own way. How do we do that? And I don't think you could do that from the inside. So Ebony can give some great advice. Please engage her. Again, she will be at the summit. She's also going to be at the NCRC conference as one of my scholarships up in D.C. So We're going to be yelling and screaming at the lawmakers in D.C. April 14th.
On my birthday,
15th.
by the way, we're going to be yelling and screaming at the lawmakers on April 16th, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so I think I'll let her take the lead a lot then when the delegation
Like,
goes
get this
in.
lady out of here.
Yeah. So thank you so much for viewing the Just Economy podcast. My name again is Cornell Cruz Jr., the Community Reinvestment Alliance of Florida. We look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.
In a world still chasing economic justice, one voice rises to inspire change, from the streets to the boardrooms, from ideas to real action. Cornell Cruz Jr. invites you to listen.